It was June 3rd, 2021. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made even the birds seem suspicious. A soft wind rustled through the tops of the pines in the Flathead National Forest, just north of Willow Creek, Montana. The sun filtered through layers of mist that hovered over the underbrush like breath held too long. Moss clung to trees like forgotten memories, and the air smelled of damp earth, aging bark, and the faint tang of iron. Travis Wren, 38, a seasoned hiker and off-duty firefighter from nearby Kalispell, moved carefully along a trail he'd never meant to take. The map he carried was old and frayed, marked with red X's from his own previous expeditions. This area wasn't even on most updated maps anymore. It wasn't an official trail, just something he followed on instinct, curiosity, and silence. That was all he wanted from the weekend. But silence wasn't what he found. At 2:47 p.m., he saw it, a flash of yellow, almost completely obscured by decades of vegetation. His first thought was that it was just another rusted barrel or a discarded tractor cab. But as he stepped closer, pushing through ferns taller than his waist, his heart stopped. It was a school bus, or what was left of one. The roof had partially collapsed under the weight of years. Moss and ivy crept over the metal like nature had been trying to erase it. The paint, once bright, was now a sickly shade of greenish yellow, like old teeth. The tires had long since been consumed by the ground, now no more than shredded rubber melted into the earth. There were no windows, just jagged holes rimmed with rust. The number on the side, barely visible beneath a smear of dirt and algae, read 57. Travis stood still, the kind of still where even breathing felt intrusive. He hadn't seen a road in over an hour. No signs of a trail wide enough for a bus to have come through. No tracks, no sign it had crashed. It was just there, swallowed. He circled the vehicle slowly. The emergency exit at the back had been forced open at some point. The door hung crooked on one hinge, creaking faintly in the breeze. Through it, he could see a row of torn, moldy seats, some barely upright. A few had long slashes down the vinyl, revealing yellow foam inside like old scars. Travis reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. No service. He climbed in. The air inside was heavier than outside, thick, stale, suffocating. It smelled like damp wood, old plastic, and something else, the unmistakable rot of decay. Mold bloomed across the ceiling like a galaxy of black stars. Vines snaked through shattered windows. At the front, the steering wheel was missing. So was the seat. But the personal belongings were still there. Backpacks, jackets, a few notebooks. One graduation cap with a tassel still attached, pale green, with the year 1999 embroidered in gold. A shiver traced Travis's spine. He turned, stepping carefully over warped floor panels and soggy litter. Every footstep echoed. The silence was oppressive. Every breath came with a sense of intrusion. Something told him he shouldn't be here, not just because it was dangerous, but because this place had been left untouched for a reason. Near the very back, he stopped. There was a pile of clothing on the seat, and beneath it, a bone. No, not just a bone. A jawbone, human. It was unmistakable, the teeth still intact, part of the hinge visible. Dark stains seeped into the upholstery around it. He froze. A soft noise cracked behind him, a branch, a twig, a whisper of movement. But when he spun around, there was only the sound of his own blood pounding in his ears. He backed away, stumbled out of the bus, and scrambled for his radio. 2 hours later, the site was crawling with law enforcement, search teams, and forensic units. Yellow tape fluttered in the breeze, like ghosts arguing with the wind. That night, the news hit local media. Human remains found in abandoned school bus in Flathead National Forest. Authorities reopen 22-year-old cold case of Willow Creek class of 19. Mystery deepens. No roads lead to the discovery site. But for the families who had waited, begged, prayed, this wasn't news. It was a wound reopened. 27 students from Willow Creek High School had boarded that bus on June 5, 1999. It was meant to be their graduation trip, a final adventure before college and adulthood. They were never seen again. Until now. The town of Willow Creek had never truly moved on. The school had erected a bronze plaque by the front entrance. 27 names etched beneath the words, "Gone but never forgotten, Class of 1999. Every June 5th, candles were lit, photos placed. Silence observed, parents still drove the same roads, still opened old yearbooks and waited for answers that never came. Some had left town, unable to bear the memories. Others remained, trapped by grief that had turned into ritual. No one had ever found the bus until Travis, and now the questions were louder than ever. Where had it been for 22 years? Why were 17 skeletons recovered but not 27? What happened to the rest? And why did it feel like the forest itself had kept the secret? At the police station in Kalispell, Detective Dana Murdoch stood over the evidence board. Red string crisscrossed photos of the bus, student headshots, pages from old case files. A yearbook from 1999 lay open on the table, warped by age. On the back cover, scribbled messages from classmates said things like, "See you at the river," and "Best summer ever incoming." There was one message circled in red ink, a quote written by someone named Noah Grayson. "We survived high school. The forest got nothing on us." Murdoch exhaled slowly. That quote felt off. 22 years later, the forest had everything on them. She flipped the page. A photo stared back at her. A group shot, all 27 students, all smiling. And in the back row, arms crossed, expression unreadable, stood Noah Grayson. Across town, a doorbell rang. Vivian Monroe, now in her 60s, stood at the threshold holding her breath. The news had already reached her hours earlier. She'd heard the word remains and dropped her glass of water. Now an officer stood on her porch. In her daughter's room, nothing had changed. Harper Monroe's bed was still made, her trophies still dusted. Her graduation dress still hung behind the closet door, plastic cover intact. Vivian refused to bury anything, refused to hold a funeral, refused to let the town tell her to move on. Because somewhere inside her, something always said, "Harper's not gone, she's just not back yet." But that belief would soon be tested. Because back at the forest site, hidden under the driver's seat of the bus, forensic teams recovered something strange. A manila folder, sealed with tape, water-damaged but mostly intact. Inside, drawings, disturbing, charcoal-heavy, fevered sketches. Signed, L. Choi. Lena Choi, one of the missing. The images showed masked figures, trees dripping with blood, and a bus surrounded by faceless silhouettes. And on the final page, a drawing of a single person standing apart from the others. The caption read, "One will return." The motel room was silent except for the buzzing of a cheap fluorescent light and the low hum of a mini-fridge trying to stay alive. Noah Grayson sat at the edge of the bed, hunched over, staring at his hands. They looked like someone else's, calloused, thin, twitching slight. 22 years had passed since he'd last seen Willow Creek, and now everything felt too bright, too clean, His fingers grazed the object in his lap, a yearbook, old, faded, warped from years of being stuffed in a plastic bag under floorboards. On the back cover, his own handwriting stared up at him. "We survived high school. The forest's got nothing on us." He closed the book slowly, his hands trembling as he set it aside. In the drawer of the nightstand, buried beneath hotel Bibles and a broken remote, lay a single envelope. He hadn't opened it yet. He didn't need to. It was addressed in a familiar hand. Russell Grayson. Noah hadn't seen him in almost a decade. Back in 1999, Noah was the quiet one in the group. Not shy, just observant. He had a way of fading into the background, even in group photos. Teachers described him as focused and mature beyond his years, which was just code for keeps to himself. He wasn't the class clown. That was Silas Boone. He wasn't the valedictorian. That was Harper Monroe, daughter of a local senator. He wasn't the artist. That was Lena Choi, who rarely spoke but saw the world in graphs. Noah was the one who recorded everything. He carried a handheld camcorder everywhere, filming the halls of Willow Creek High like a ghost hunter, cafeteria fights, football games, a squirrel stealing someone's sandwich in the courtyard. He documented the mundane because he believed small moments mattered more than the big ones. Now, His mother died in 2008, breast cancer. He hadn't even made it to the funeral. By then, he was too far gone, too deep into hiding, too afraid that if he showed his face again, they would. His father never forgave him. He remembered the last phone call. "You owe us answers, Noah. You left us in..." But Noah couldn't explain what he'd seen, not then, and not even now. Detective Dana Murdoch arrived at the motel at 6:15 a.m., sharp. She knocked twice, firm and practiced. Noah answered, wearing the same clothes from yesterday, worn jeans, a thermal shirt with a fraying collar. His eyes were hollow, skin pale. "I told you," he spoke. "They're still watching." "Mr. Grayson?" "Noah," she paused. "Noah, may I come in?" He hesitated, then she entered slowly, scanning the room. No drugs, just that yearbook, the envelope, and a pair of muddy boots by the door. She sat across from him, notepad ready, but didn't open it yet. Noah looked out the window, his voice barely audible. "Do you believe in ghosts?" Dana didn't answer. "Because I don't," he continued. "I believe in people, and I believe people do things so horrific, so far removed from what we consider human, that they become something else." Dana finally spoke. "We recovered 17 sets of remains from the bus. Yours was not among them." Noah didn't flinch. "Of course not." "Can you tell me where you've been for the last 22 years? Noah blinked slowly. "I can try. 1999. The day they left for the trip, Noah had almost skipped it. He wasn't big on group outings. He hated the sound of too many people talking at once, the way chaos wrapped around his brain like static. But Harper insisted, "You can't miss this. It's our last memory as kids." So he went. The bus was already packed when he arrived. Laughter, music, snacks being thrown across the aisle. Mr. Soward, Ivers, the history teacher, sat near the front going over a checklist. Ms. Barrett, the chaperone, wore her signature purple scarf, the one all the girls teased her about. Noah slid into the back row next to Lena Choi. She didn't look up from her sketchbook, but he saw her doodling flames, and something else. Trees with faces. Eyes. "What is that?" he'd asked. She'd glanced at him, almost surprised he noticed. "It's a dream I keep having," she whispered. Before he could ask more, the bus lurched forward, and everything faded behind them. Back in the motel, Dana leaned forward. "You've said you were taken, that the bus never reached the campground. What happened instead?" Noah rubbed his hands over his face. "The engine died, about 2 hours in. No signal, no map, just silence." Dana frowned. Noah didn't answer. Instead, he reached for the envelope and slid it across the table. Dana opened it. Inside were hand-drawn maps, symbols, phrases written in erratic handwriting. Cleansing. Only the willing remain. The woods do not forget. One image was a sketch of the bus, surrounded by people in gray robes, arms outstretched. Another showed a circle of masks hanging from tree branches. Dana's voice was steady. "You drew these?" Noah shook his head. "Lena did. I just kept them." The motel phone rang at 6:48 a.m. Noah flinched violently. Dana picked it up. A voice on the other end. "Tell him to stop talking." Click. The line went dead. Dana stared at the receiver. Her pulse quickened, but her expression remained controlled. Noah stood, his voice flat. "I told you, they're still out there." In the basement of Willow Creek Public Library, under years of archived newspapers and forgotten microfilms, sat a wooden journal, bound in leather, no author name, no library tag. Inside were dated entries, not from a student, from someone older. Russell Grayson. He had documented every lead, every rumor, every theory. A page was bookmarked, June 11, 2006. I think Noah's alive. A man saw someone matching his description near Missoula, said he was barefoot, rambling, eyes haunted, couldn't keep still. But by the time the police showed up, he was gone. Another page. I don't think they crashed. I think they were taken, chosen. I think the woods hid them, not by accident, by design. Noah had never known about the journal. He hadn't known how close his father came to finding him, or how far gone he already was by then. In his room that night, Noah opened the yearbook again. He stared at Lena's message beside her photo. Some things aren't meant to be drawn, but I saw them anyway. He touched the page as if it might change, and then he turned to the very last page, where someone had scribbled in pen, in a shaky hand, "We tried to leave, only I made it. I'm sorry." Noah had no memory of writing it, but he knew it was his. Outside the motel, headlights flared briefly, then vanished. Someone was watching. 3 days after Noah Grayson's reappearance, the forest began to speak again. It started with the rain, unseasonal, steady, and cold, like the trees themselves were weeping. Locals said it hadn't rained like this in June since 1999. Some called it coincidence. Others whispered the old stories again. The bus had been found, but it wasn't done giving up its secrets. June 6, 2021. Willow Creek, Montana. Detective Dana Murdoch stepped out of her cruiser, boots sinking slightly into the softened gravel of the forest perimeter. The crime scene was now an excavation site. Tarps stretched overhead, searchlights powered by portable generators, forensic tents scattered like white scars against the green. "Anything new?" she asked, approaching the lead technician. The man, short, bald, glasses fogged from the rain, held up a clear evidence bag. Inside, a camcorder, model from the late 80s, batteries long, the tape loaded into a converted player the station kept for archival case. The screen flickered, grainy. Then, a date stamp, June 5, 1999, 4:12 p.m. Laughter filled the bus. The camera panned from student to student. Silas Boone, making jokes with a bag of Doritos on his head. Harper Monroe teasing Mr. Ivers about his outdated map. Lena Choi sketching quietly, camera-shy. Then the frame shifted. Noah Grayson. He looked into the lens for a moment, as if unsure whether to smile. He didn't. Instead, he turned the camera toward the window. Pine trees blurred past. The sky was overcast. Suddenly, the bus lurched. The camera jostled. Several students gasped. Someone shouted, "What was that?" The frame spun wildly. Screams. A sharp metallic groan. The camera dropped sideways into the aisle. Then silence. Then footsteps. Heavy, measured, too slow to be running, too steady to be panicked. And then a voice, faint, unfamiliar, words in a language no one recognized, low, chant-like, and then static. Dana rewound it 5 times. Every time the same question haunted her. Who was walking down that aisle after the screaming stopped? Across town, Vivian Monroe stood in her garden, the one Harper had planted that last spring. The roses never grew right again. She wore the same scarf her daughter once used as a belt, frayed at the edges. Her fingers trembled as she watered each plant with mechanical precision. She hadn't told anyone yet, but the night before she'd received a letter. No return address, no postmark, just her name written in slanted block letters. Inside, old, faded, from 1999. It showed the bus parked in a clearing that no one recognized. The students stood outside in a semicircle. Most were smiling, but not all. In the back, slightly out of frame, someone stood in a gray robe. Vivian stared at the photo for hours. Then she burned it, but the smell of smoke never left the room. Meanwhile, at the Kalispell station, Noah sat in a windowless room, flanked by two officers. He was holding something small, a necklace, a silver charm in the shape of a pine cone, tarnished, bent slightly at the tip. "It belonged to Lena," he said quietly. "She dropped it the second night." "I kept it." "For 22 years?" one of the... Noah nodded. "It reminded me of who we were before we forgot. You said there were rituals." "There were." "What kind?" Noah stared ahead. "They made us choose things to let go of, names, memories, people. They said those ties made us weak, that we were becoming part of something older, something rooted." He glanced down at the charm, but Lena never let go. She drew, even when they told her not to, even when they punished her. "What happened to her?" Noah didn't answer. That night, Detective Murdoch drove to the home of Gavin Morales, the retired biology teacher at Willow Creek High. In 1999, he was the one who'd raised the alarm when the class never arrived at the campground. He was now 71, hard of hearing, lived alone. She knocked. The porch light flickered above her. Gavin opened the door slowly. His eyes widened when "They're back," he said. "Now, what do you mean?" "The forest. It's remembering." Dana stepped inside. Gavin's living room was a shrine to the missing students. Photos, newspaper clippings, tapes, strings of red and blue yarn connecting push pins on a corkboard. In the center, pinned above all others, a map. But it wasn't of Montana. It was hand-drawn, circular. In the middle, a ring of trees, and scrawled in shaky pen, the Hollow Route. "What is this?" Gavin sat slowly. "I've been researching old logging records," he said. "There was a village out there, not on any current map, used by workers before the 1940s. They called it the Hollow Route because a massive cedar tree in the center had rotted from the inside out. They built cabins around it, but then something changed. Changed how? People started disappearing. Reports of lights in the woods, chanting. By 1948, the whole site was abandoned, erased from official maps." "Why?" "Because the government didn't want anyone going back." Dana felt a chill crawl up her arms. Gavin leaned closer. "What if that's where they took the kids?" 2 days later, at 3:11 a.m., the phone at the sheriff's department rang. A voice, distorted and low. "She's still drawing. In the trees." Click. The next morning, a deputy found something carved into a tree near the old campsite. A symbol, an eye inside a circle, surrounded by jagged branches. The same symbol from Lena's sketches. At the edge of town, Russell Grayson's old cabin had long been abandoned. After his death, no one claimed it, no one went near it, but now someone had broken in. Dana received the call just after noon. She arrived to find the back door splintered, footprints in the dust, and something waiting in the fireplace, a shoebox. Inside, burned photos, charred notebooks, melted cassette tapes, and at the very bottom, a single VHS tape in perfect condition, labeled, "Last night, do not watch alone." She didn't watch it yet. She placed it in evidence, but something about it made her fingers burn. Meanwhile, Noah sat in the interview room again. This time, he wasn't alone. Next to him sat Marianne Boone, younger sister of Silas. She had been 13 when her brother vanished. Now she was 35, a nurse, unmarried, no kids. She had followed every update obsessively. She requested to speak with Noah. When he saw her, he froze. "You're Silas's sister." She nodded. "You were the last one to see him," he said. "You owe me the truth." His hands gripped the table. "I tried to stop him," he said, "but he didn't listen." "Stop him from what?" "Escaping?" That night, a park ranger on patrol radioed in, I found something. Coordinates match the edge of the old village. I think you need to see this. Then static. Then nothing. For 3 days there was no sign of the missing park ranger. Not his truck, not his radio, not his body. Only his final words, still echoing through the sheriff's logs. I found something. You need to see this. Then nothing but static. The silence was louder than a scream. Detective Dana Murdoch stared at the map pinned to the wall of the makeshift operations center set up near the tree line. Dozens of red pins now formed a crude circle, the boundary of what they were calling the Hollow Root Zone. No official path entered it, no recent satellite data covered it. And every time they tried to send a drone over, the feed died the second it crossed the tree line. She turned to the only person who had ever come back from there alive. Noah Grayson. Inside the tent, Dana played the camcorder footage from 1999 once more, this time on a larger screen. She paused the frame at 4:18 p.m. That moment, What was that? She asked. Noah didn't blink. A ritual starting. Who were the people in the robes? They called themselves the Rooted, he said. Said they were older than the trees, said the forest chose us, that we weren't meant to leave because we'd been touched. Touched? Noah nodded slowly. Seen something we weren't supposed to. Meanwhile, a second team was dispatched to the edge of the Hollow Root perimeter, using satellite triangulation from the park ranger's last known position. They found his radio, cracked in half, lying beside a tree with one side burned black, as if struck by lightning, though no storms had passed. On the tree's bark, carved deeply, "We keep what the world forgot." Underneath, pinned by a rusted nail, a photograph. Lena Choi, still alive. Eyes wide, hands tied, mask behind her. The photo was undated, but it looked recent. The news exploded across Montana. Missing girl from 1999 may still be alive. Cult activity in Flathead Forest. State officials pressure FBI to reopen cold case full scale. Families were torn. Some clung to hope. Others were furious, especially those who had buried what few remains were recovered. Marianne Boone appeared on the local evening news, gripping her brother's jersey in her hands. "My brother wanted to come home. If there's even a chance, someone's still out there. We can't stop now." But not everyone agreed. Vivian Monroe called the sheriff's office in tears. "You don't understand," she said. "If Harper isn't dead, that means she's been trapped for 22 years. That's worse." Back in Kalispell, Noah received a visit from someone he hadn't seen since 2004, Elliot James, once his best friend, now a priest. Elliot had left Willow Creek the year after the class disappeared, said the grief swallowed the town, said he couldn't pray in a place that didn't believe anymore. Now he sat across from Noah, hands folded, expression unreadable. "I read your file," he said. "They say you're traumatized, delusional." Noah laughed bitterly. "Am I?" "You're the only one who came back. That means something." "It means I survived." "No," Elliot said. "It means you were sent back." Meanwhile, the VHS tape found in Russell Grayson's fireplace was finally played. It took 3 technicians and a stabilized power source to get it working. The footage was in black and white. Dated June 10, 1999. 5 days after the class disappeared. It showed a cabin, old, wooden, moss-covered. Inside, a group of students seated in a circle. Eyes glazed, movements robotic. One girl stands, Harper Monroe. She speaks, monotone. "We are no longer who we were. The forest has cleansed us. We accept the root." Behind her, a robed figure places a mask over her face, then turns to the camera. The tape ends. Dana stared at the paused frame. The robed figure's hand had a tattoo, a symbol. It matched one found in Lena's drawings. She pulled out the folder Noah had given her weeks ago. Page 3, the same hand, same tattoo. Caption beneath, "He is the root speaker. Later that week, a journal was discovered buried beneath the floorboards of the old ranger station, abandoned since 2005. The journal belonged to Ms. Eloise Barrett, the chaperone on the 1999 trip. She'd been considered missing, or presumed dead. But her final entry, dated June 12, 1999, suggested otherwise. They call it the Hollow Root. They feed it with memory, with names. Every day another child forgets who they are. I tried to help them. But I think I'm forgetting too. There was one last line, scribbled in shaky ink. If you find this, tell my sister I didn't want this. They told me we were building something new. They lied. Back at the operations center, Dana brought the journal to Noah. His hand shook as he read it. She tried, he whispered. She tried to protect us. But once you breathe that air, once you eat their food, it starts to take you, not just your body, yourself. Dana leaned in. But you remembered. I kept one thing, he said. He pulled a small, round object from his pocket, a pine cone, silver, hollow. I hid it. They made us burn everything from before, but I buried this. And when I found it again years later, it snapped something back. Meanwhile, search teams found a hidden root cellar deep in the forest, 2 miles north of the bus site. Inside, empty beds, ash piles, chains bolted to the walls, and one drawing, burned at the edges, Lena again, a girl with her mouth sewn shut. Caption, Don't speak the old name. At 4:19 a.m., the forensic lab sent a report to the sheriff's office. Partial DNA recovered from the chain in the cellar, matched a name in the National Registry. Not one of the students, not a teacher, someone who had never been listed in any database connected to the case. Name, Jared Boone, Marianne's father, missing since 1983. The DNA test had come back 3 times, same result. The blood on the chain in the underground chamber, deep beneath the hollow root boundary, belonged to Jared Boone, a man who had vanished in 1983 while hiking alone near Glacier National Park. And now, nearly 40 years later, his DNA appeared in the middle of a cold case involving his own son. Detective Dana Murdoch stared at the report in silence, her heart thudding in her chest. She wasn't just chasing a story anymore. She was chasing a cycle, a legacy, one that had started long before 1999. Across town, Marianne Boone sat in a booth at Millie's Cafe, staring into a cup of coffee gone cold. She hadn't slept. She hadn't spoken since the phone call. "My father?" she repeated again, as if the words didn't belong in her mouth. "You're telling me he was part of this?" Noah sat across from her, his eyes hollow. "I don't think he was part of it," he said. "I think he was the first." Back at the operations tent, the FBI arrived. Late, reluctant, skeptical. Special Agent Rebecca Kinsey, tall, sharp, and clinical, took over the field command. She didn't care about local legends. She cared about evidence. But what she found inside the hollow root perimeter defied all logic. First, an ancient cabin, untouched by time, covered in symbols, not linked to any known language. Second, a locked trunk filled with ID cards, students from 1999, teachers, park rangers, one dated 1972. Third, a preserved brain in a jar, still submerged in fluid, no name, no explanation. But the label beneath it read, Memory Anchor, Subject 02. When Dana saw the list, she noticed something else. Among the IDs was one labeled Elliot James. At least, no date, no expiration, just a black and white photo of a teenage boy, eyes blank, mouth closed. That evening, Dana drove to the church. Elliot was in the pews alone, candles flickering around him. "I need to ask you something," she said. He didn't turn. "You were on the trip, weren't you?" he echoed. "No." "You lied." "I wasn't on that trip," he said. "But I've been there." Dana stepped closer. "When?" "Before Noah, before the others, 1983. Dana felt the ground shift beneath her. Elliot's voice dropped. They don't just take kids. They take witnesses. People who see something they shouldn't. I saw something. I told no one. Until now. He pulled something from his coat. A mask. Wooden. Weathered. Painted with sap. The root speaker wore this, he said. He said I had a choice. Become part of the forest, or forget I ever came. What did you choose? I ran. Meanwhile, Noah returned to the site. He walked the edge of the hollow root boundary alone, fingers grazing tree bark like memories. He stopped at the base of a dead cedar, carved into the wood, NG plus LC. He remembered the night he carved it. Lena had smiled at him, her first real smile. That was before she was punished for drawing. Before she stopped speaking. Before she vanished. Suddenly the trees rustled. No wind, no birds, just movement. And then a voice. Noah? He turned slowly. Standing 20 feet away was a woman, thin, pale, hair long and tangled, Lena Choi, alive. They stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. Her voice, when it came, was hoarse. You shouldn't be here. I had to come, he whispered. You'll bring them back. I never stopped carrying them. She led him deeper into the woods. To a place no map marked, a circle of stones, a single tree at the center, split down the middle, bleeding sap like blood. Lena pointed to the base. They're buried there, the ones who tried to leave. Who? Noah asked. Your friends? Harper, Silas, the ones who remembered too much. He dropped to his knees. She crouched beside him. You were meant to stay. I didn't remember, until the pine cone. They never took that from you. Meanwhile, Dana received a call. The forensic team had cleaned the VHS further, new frame recovered. Final second, someone holding the camera, not one of the students, not the teachers. A man, middle-aged, tall, Jared Boone, alive in 1999, filming the rituals. Back at the cabin, Lena placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. You have to finish it. What? The root is dying, she said. It's why they sent the dreams, why they took your memories. They needed new soil, new seeds. Noah trembled. What do I do? She looked into his eyes. Burn it. Hours later, the FBI moved in. By then, Noah and Lena were gone. The tree was gone too, burned to ash. In its place, a hollow. A single pine cone left upright in the center, silver, open, empty. That night, as Dana reviewed the evidence, a letter was slid under her door. No return address. Inside, a photo, from today, of her. Standing in the woods, taken from behind. Captioned, You've seen too much. The fire raged for hours. From miles away, the orange glow bled into the night sky like a wound opening over the forest. Helicopters circled, but no water was dropped, no effort made to stop it, because the fire wasn't spreading. It was contained, tightly, unnaturally, to a perfect circle in the woods, the very heart of Hollow Root. And in the center of that ring, all that remained was ash, bone, and a single silver pine cone, now split cleanly in two, as if the forest itself had exhaled. Noah Grayson watched from a ridge, breath misting in the cold air. Lena stood beside him, silent, her face bathed in the firelight, unmoving. They'll come looking for you, she said. I know. They'll ask where the others are. I'll tell them the truth, but not the whole truth. Lena turned to him. Will you tell them I'm alive? He hesitated, then shook his head. She nodded once, then stepped back into the dark, swallowed by the woods without a... He never saw her again. Back in Willow Creek, families gathered at the town hall for what should have been a press conference. Instead, they got silence. Agent Kinsey stood at the podium, flanked by state troopers, her face composed but exhausted. The investigation into the class of 1999 remains open, she said. 17 confirmed deceased. 10 still unaccounted for. A possible cult presence has been ruled unsubstantiated. Murmurs exploded through the crowd. You said you found drawings. You said there were tapes. What about Lena? What about Harper? Agent Kinsey only repeated, We are still analyzing the evidence. But Noah knew the truth. They weren't analyzing anything. They were burying it. At the back of the room, Vivian Monroe sat with a framed photo of Harper on her lap, white, her knuckles white. When she stood, the room fell silent. I waited 22 years for an answer, she said, voice trembling, and I've made peace with not getting one. She looked toward Noah, sitting by himself. But I hope, wherever she is or whoever she became, that she forgives me for needing her to be the girl I remembered. A quiet tear rolled down her cheek. I don't need a funeral. I just want to believe she wasn't alone. Later that night, Noah stood in his father's cabin. Dust clung to the beams. The journal was still there, now closed, pages marked with red tabs. He sat at the desk, opened a fresh page, and wrote, I came back. But I left pieces of myself behind. Some things we carry, some things carry us. I don't know which I am anymore. He tore the page out, folded it, and tucked it inside the yearbook. Then he walked into the woods one last time. He returned the next morning alone, clothes torn, eyes hollow again. But something in his shoulders had changed, no longer curled in fear, but carrying weight. He handed the yearbook to Dana. It's all in there, he said. The names, the places, the ones who gave in, the ones who resisted. Will they believe it? She asked. Noah shook his head. They'll do what they always do. Forget. At the library, Mary Ann Boone sat on the floor beside the memorial wall, fingers tracing the carved name of her brother, Silas. A basketball trophy now sat beneath his photo, dusty but standing tall. Mary Ann placed a letter beside it. Inside it said, I forgive you, and I'm proud of you. A week later, the forest was declared unstable. Roads leading in were blocked. Trails erased from public maps. Government officials cited erosion and wildfire damage. No one questioned it. People wanted it gone. And maybe, so did the forest. One night, months later, Dana received a package in the mail, no return address, inside a sketchbook, Lena's. Pages filled with the new drawings, but softer now, lighter, trees without eyes, hands reaching for sunlight. And in the back, a portrait of Dana, smiling. A note beneath, You remembered, that makes you dangerous. That also makes you free. End of the last page of the sketchbook. A handwritten sentence in the same style as Lena. They planted us thinking we'd break, but we were seeds. It was fall again in Willow Creek. Leaves turned rusted gold. School bells echoed faintly from the valley. Life had somehow found a way to move forward, not because people forgot, but because forgetting was easier than remembering everything. In the town square, the class of 1999 memorial stood as it always had, clean, quiet. 27 names carved in bronze, one of them now rubbed smooth from too many fingers tracing the same line. Harper Monroe. A fresh pine cone rested beneath the plaque, silver, unbroken. Dana Murdoch no longer worked for the department. She had filed for early retirement 5 months after the investigation. No one ever questioned why. Maybe they were afraid to. She moved out of town, took a job cataloging lost cases in an archive no one visited. But every June 5th she returned, to walk the old forest edge, to leave one yellow flower near the boundary line, to remember. Noah Grayson was never seen again after that summer. No credit cards used, no phone activity, no sightings, no answers. Some say he left the country. Others say he lives in the woods still, watching, recording, remembering. But Dana received one final letter. No return address. Inside, a single Polaroid photo of a group of teenagers standing in a clearing, smiling. Harper, Silas, Lena, Noah. The original 27 frozen in time, and on the back written in faded ink, "We were never meant to be forgotten, just planted elsewhere." Back in Willow Creek, the old librarian retired and passed down a key, one that opened the locked drawer in her desk, where she'd hidden something for decades, a journal, Lena's original, the one everyone thought had been burned. Inside, the last page read, "The root will always find new soil. But now we've left the seeds in other hands." And taped beneath it, a copy of the VHS tape, label, "Play this only if they forget again." And still. Sometimes hikers report strange whispers near the tree line. Sometimes a symbol appears carved into bark overnight. Sometimes a pine cone is found, not fallen, placed, but the fire never returned, and the bus was never seen again, only ash and silence. Some things we carry, some things carry us, and some were never supposed to come back.